Bluebell rise in shear, installation of a septic tank and land drains. The idea of this video is to explain with a limited amount of photographs. The photographs are there so we can identify what's been said and make it a little easier. Try to forgive the fact that I will repeat myself often throughout the main video. As an example or a metaphor, insurance companies identify cause and damages. In most cases, they will not pay for the cause, but they will pay for the damages. If you wrongly install a surface water system, then that is a cause, and there is a responsibility to reinstall or repair. The way I see it, the way I read it, the solicitors and Mrs. Levesley read from my report, sometimes slightly amended, about my recommendations as the cause, which they truly are. The causes are valued, or the value of the estimate is around 20,000 to 25,000. And that's the report they're reading, but they're not reading it as recommendations. In fact, they're saying, we can't find the estimate for the surface water system. And I don't understand what they mean, because they're reading from the actual report for the recommendations for the surface water. The surface water is something that isn't there. It's in disarray. It's in bad repair. The recommendations to do with surface water, which you can see here, are in little lots of money. You know, it's got surface water 1, surface water 2, 3, and they total up to about 20,080, I think it is. That's what they did. I think that's what they all decided together. It's a bit more than that, to be honest with you. But that's the only recommendations of that value. The other value is the damages that the surface water in the foul system caused, which is the actual loss of the soakaways. No one's saying that the septic tank is not fit for purpose. They're not saying it's too small. They're just saying that the soakaways are full of silt and rubbish, which they are. And they're also saying replace the surface water system and all the defects so they have a system. All the defects in the drain are because of a lack of maintenance and a lack of checking them. That just happens over years, and they haven't had it surveyed and they haven't looked at to get them done. And the other recommendation is the soakaways themselves. They're valued at about £3,800, which I recommended I would do at cost. Now, if I can pause here, I think the solicitors may be doing this on purpose to keep it out the small claims court, because the damages is only, as I've explained several times, is £3,800. They're solicitors that are on no win, no pay, will fall by the wayside once it goes back to the, or when it goes into the proper courts, which is for under £10,000. It goes in the small claims court, then they'll just fall away. So that, I think, is the objective somehow. Recommendation is the soakaways themselves. They're valued at about £3,800, which I recommended I would do at cost. But, you know, if they were pricing it, they would price it about £6,000 or £7,000. But that's nowhere near the 20 and 25. Let me state right now that we did no work on the surface water at all. We did no repairs or installations on surface water, so it's nothing to do with us at all. And, you know, even if we didn't recommend the survey, which we did, as you know, I think most experts and specialists understand that it would be very unfair to say, you know, you've got to do all the surface water drains to the value of 20,000 or more. They refer to it as defects. Mark Dodds, the installer, is quite peeved at the fact that he wasn't listened to and his survey was refused in 2014. So you can imagine he finds it astonishing, to say the least, to be accused of not carrying out procedure of recommending a survey. Although he didn't know that there was surface water in the drains, and he couldn't know there was so much wrong with them. The way I see it is the surface water system is dilapidated and isn't fit for purpose, and should have been checked by a CTV survey, or we should have been allowed to do it by a CTV survey, and there should have been a plan made out, and it should have been installed then. And it's no different now. It's got to be done now, and has been by another contractor. Totally disagree with the fact that surface water is often found in modern properties from the olden days. The reason I disagree is because surface water in the foul drainage that leads to a septic tank or a private system doesn't work. So within a couple of years, if not less, it stops working. So therefore, so many 2 years of not working, or trying to do the circuitways several times, then eventually the occupiers realise that, or someone helps them, and then they put the problem right. The only way that you can get away with this, or the only way this goes on for years, is when it's discharged into an open ditch. You're polluting the ditch. This is against the environmental laws for sure. And polluting the ditch, including surface water, is huge. And I think this property's been doing it for many, many years. Polluting the ditch, I mean. We agree the septic tank and land drains were appropriate and according to the regulations. Reference your comments. Expert opinion report by Richard. Paragraph 5.7. Soakaway array. The contact we had with the local authorities, the building notice, are very happy with like for like. The environmental agency, because it's under 2 cubic meters discharge, they're not interested. They have well publicised the fact that a consented discharge is not required. I've explained this in your expert opinion advice, which I agree with. SL have been putting in septic tanks and circuitways for more than 30-40 years. The operators themselves, between them, have an excess of 25 years of experience. They followed procedure, keeping the client informed at all times, and they recommended a CCTV survey and to map out the drainage system around the house, or seem to agree. The cause is the defects, such as the rainwater which has been left in the foul drainage, and in my opinion, based on the evidence, connections that have been made by a third party. May I query an expert opinion report? You state in your letter, before we state what he says in his letter, an interesting point. They are reading the report, which is recommendations, as if there were damages, because he goes on to say there's no estimate or proposals for the removal of the surface water replacement. He is reading, he's calling them defects. He's got it mixed. He's not got it right. The damages are the land drains. That's what the damages is. The defects and the rainwater in the system is the cause. So he's reading my estimate on rainwater replacement and defects. You state in your letter, there were no proposals, I quote, there are no proposals or costs estimates for removing the rainwater pipes from the foul drainage system and discharging the rainwater to new soakaways. I believe you have identified the estimate. You refer to it as the defects. Date 5th of May 2016, job reference to 9306-0714. The estimate gives details on surface water in areas Stage 1, Stage 2, Stage 3, installations of perforated concrete rings, type soakaways, etc., etc. In one of the letters, in your correspondence from RHW, 30th October 2016, your reference, Mr/EJM/live 1.1, you state in the paragraph, and I'll give you the heading of the paragraph, indeed it is the case. And what you've said in there is your engineers saw fit to feed the foul including the surface water, directly into the septic tank. Another statement in that report, the 30th of October, which indicates that you're taking our report of the cause of the breakdown as something that you think that we installed, calling it defects. Again, you write, remarkably, you have suggested that the rectification works be carried out at our client's expense. They're reading my report, my recommendations, thinking the drainage works to put the damages right, when in fact he's reading the recommendations to put the surface water in for the first time. Reference the letter 13th of October 2016 from R.H.W. Solicitors, Walnut Tree Close, and I quote, "Our client has since carried out her own investigations. She agrees entirely with your findings. She has further discovered that the ingress of surface water has resulted in sludge, effluent and scum all being forced through the outlet pipe and into the soakaways." We did not install any defects. They were already there. This is the rainwater. This is reading from my report, and they're quoting exactly what I recommended and what I found to be the cause, but we did not install these things, so we didn't install defects. The report goes on to say, in your letter you have admitted there are defects with the system and that rectification works need to be carried out. Our client completely agrees and for the above reasons believe the work should be carried out urgently. Remarkably, you have suggested the rectifications works be carried out at our client's expense. On the contrary, the system is not satisfactory quality and has not been installed with reasonable care and skill. As a consequence, ASL is in breach of contract and liable to pay our client's damages equivalent to the costs of providing a system which is of satisfactory quality and is installed with reasonable care and skill. Such costs will include the making good and are likely to fall between £15,000 and £25,000. I didn't admit defects. I recommended some works on the surface water. And it's nothing to do with the system that ASL put in. ASL's system started from the old septic tank up to and the installation of the new septic tank, and then into the soakaway. That is ASL's system and no other. We did not work on any of the surface water defects, and what you're reading is the recommendations. Nothing to do with the septic tank or land drains. It's nothing to do with the system. It's to do with the cause. I'm glad Mrs. Leversley agrees with my findings. Only it is Mrs. Leversley's cost because it's something that wasn't done prior to and after we was on site in 2014. Not to do with it being installed with reasonable quality and care, because we didn't install the surface water system. It's the cause which we both agree with, only I didn't install it, so therefore I cannot be responsible. I can't put it in poorly, I can't put it in without quality because I didn't put it in. I did follow procedure, or my men did follow procedure by giving verbal instructions and advice about the quality and the state of the drains and the benefits of actually doing a survey, and they also put it as per their instructions, as per their training. They also put it in writing, and you received this because you did some of the work and not the CTV survey, which was £2,500, and the idea was to write a diagram and a sketch to know where all the drains were going. So we fulfilled our contract as much as we put in the septic tank, we put in the soakaway. So with men that have done it for years and years and years, with good quality and with care, reading directly from my report, and they're calling it damages, losses, or defects, when in actual fact, as I've explained, it's what I've estimated as the cause of the damage. Further clarity, in the report, the 3rd of April 2017, heading Damages from RHW Solicitors, they have wrote, and I quote, ASL own evidence is that these costs are likely to reach 20,880, including VAT. As to whether or not these estimates are high enough to cover the full extent of the losses, our client reserves her position in full. My evidence, the evidence they're reading in that report, refers to the cause, not the damages. I consider the damages to be the septic tank's soakaways. The actual soakaways is what I think has been damaged. And the cost was in the region, the cost was actually 3,800 plus VAT. And I offered Mrs. Levesley to do it at cost. I also reduced my estimate to do the cause of the damages at a reduced price. In other words, I offered to do all the surface water, drainage and defects at a reduced charge. Put this in plain language. What they're actually saying is, because you didn't inform us verbally and in writing, because you didn't estimate this work in such a way that you informed us what needed to be done, what you have to do now is this £20,000 plus worth of work that wasn't carried out. You have to now do it at your cost. You have to buy all the concrete rings and materials for the soakaways and for the surface water, which is nothing to do with us, of course. And you have to now install it. This is the cause of the problem, which should have been identified on a house purchase survey, or before any works. The general foreman would, before any works carried out, would have everything planned, and there would be a diagram, whatever. We offered to do the planning and the diagram. Now, if their claim is that we should have carried out the survey at the time in 2014, we could not, because the client wouldn't give us or didn't give us permission. Mark Dodds, in great detail, explained and recommended a CTV survey to identify where the drains, both the surface water and the foul, were going, and to make a diagram or a plan, just so that the customer would know what the drains were doing and where they were going, both verbally and in writing. And the customer did receive the estimate. It was very obvious that work needed to be done on the surface water system, and the work would be awarded to one of the other teams on the site at that time, who had already carried out soakaways at the rear of the property, and it's assumed that they would be awarded the works or the contract. We were not in charge of the site. We were just one of the contractors. In fact, Mark, who recommended the works, is not only wanting to protect the system, but he's also wanting the work. He would get a feather in his cap if he was to pull £5,000 of work or £10,000 of work. He would be really pleased about the fact that he's sold some work. However, the 3-day survey was because it was going to take so much work to clear the gullies and the dam pipes and whatever. So therefore, it was over 3 days at a cost of £2,500. So if the client is saying she thought she'd had this survey, then I don't think so. I think there's a vast difference in 3 days to an hour survey. And the cost, you would certainly know you've cost you £2,000. And we'd have the plan, of course. We'd have the sketch, estimated what we were going to do and how we were going to do it, and we fulfilled that contract. The works were ongoing. There was no dam pipes to the outbuildings, and all round the main house, because there was pipes discharging above ground, there was gullies blocked. It was obviously that someone was going to have to work on the surface water system. Now, we actually put in an estimate at that time, verbally and in writing. Mark Dodds explained in full, and it's clear the actual estimate that was needed to make a plan of what to do and how to do it. Our contract is the acceptance of the initial work estimated in July 2014. So how can we be in breach of our contract? We recommended a camera survey. This was a 3-day survey, costing around £2,500. This cannot be confused with other little surveys. But this wasn't accepted by the customer. How can we be negligent if we recommended the work but it was refused? And furthermore, there were other contractors on site at the time carrying out this very work. They were carrying out the works on the surface water. In some of the reports it states, in some of your reports it states that the circuitways were done on the other side of the building. Therefore, what I understand is the septic tank is functioning now as it was when we first put it in, although it cannot handle the defects, which is the surface water and the faults with the drain in the system. And that is what I've recommended at a cost of £20,000. I believe someone has misinformed. We did not install the surface water system. May I bring your attention? My recommendations also include the defective manhole, which has a backfall, was installed by a third party when they were connecting the green building, which breaches our guarantee. It also includes the grid, which is installed by a third party, which is the one taking the air conditioning. This is also a breach of our guarantee, conditions of the guarantee. I recommended that this grid was removed because it's at ground level and vulnerable to flood and roof water, especially since there has been no maintenance either before 2014 and when I was there in 2016. It was still not maintained. This will also include a wrongly installed 100mm pipe that has been installed into the manhole, installed by a third party, taking a very large roof space. And of course, these things are the cause. The 3 things installed by a third party would be enough to ruin the circuitways, to damage the circuitways so they cease to function.